Have you ever wondered how new features actually make it into the fantastic free game OpenTTD, or how the game continues to evolve after all of these years? Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome to an exciting interview with one of the game's core developers. Today, we're taking a look behind the scenes to see how it all works. We'll discuss recent updates, potential new features on the horizon, and the reality of what the development process is really like. We also explore exactly how people in the community can get involved and contribute to the project. It's a fascinating conversation, so let's jump straight in. Okay everybody, this is Too Tall Tyler. Hello, welcome to this little interview. How are you doing today?
I'm great, and how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to speak to me and answering the community's questions, because some of the questions I've got here I've gathered up from the community as well. So they're not just my questions. And hopefully we can get through a bunch of them and answer those questions and find out a bit more about OpenTTD, the project, but also you and your involvement in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate everything you do for OpenTTD. It's always fun. It's nice to have tutorials for the game, because when I try and introduce friends, it's OpenTTD is not an easy game to learn. It's nice to have someone streaming OpenTTD. I like to jump on your chats and or your streams and just hang out and watch and see how you play it, and see what questions people ask you. So I'm excited to help answer some of those questions today.
I noticed, I did a little bit of research, and 4 years ago, the rest of the team called you the junior in the room. They did. And does it really feel like that? I mean, especially after now we're a number of years down the line. How long have you been involved with the project, and do you feel like you've been there forever now, or how's that sit?
I wouldn't say it's been forever that I've been involved in OpenTTD. I've only been playing the game since 2017, which I guess is almost 10 years now, but let's not think about that too much. No, so I started my involvement by making new graphs, making mods for the game. But I sort of tried my hand at everything. I've done a few industry sets, a vehicle set or two, and then I started to see things in the game that I wanted to see improved. I think town generation was one of the early ones. So I picked up C++ and got started with that, and then kind of kept going. And eventually, the team invited me to help maintain the project. You know, contributing code, but also helping review code that's been contributed, helping coach, contributors to help get their code in the right place to be included as part of OpenTTD. So I definitely was, the junior developer 4 years ago. In that time since then, I've learned quite a bit, and gained some more confidence with it. I'm definitely junior compared to a lot of the other developers who I look to them for technical advice frequently, but I'm no longer the newest contributor. There's now 2 or 3 after me that are more junior, so they're the junior devs now. One of the nice things about OpenTTD is we don't have a hierarchy. Like, there are people who have more experience or have more experience in some areas, but there's the opportunity to be mentored, but there's not, like, no one's supervising, no one's managing, no one is assigning projects or tasks. So being the junior developer on OpenTTD is not really like being a junior developer at a software company.
I like to go in there and have a look at what's going on and see what people are saying about code changes, and just get a sense of what's happening in the community of the developers as this project goes on. And it's really good to see that collaboration, and I think it's at a level that you don't see in many other places.
I agree. I think a lot of that is made possible by the game being free and open source. Like, we don't have deadlines we have to meet. We don't have to sell the game. Obviously, we want to make the best game we can, but it's like sometimes our yearly release gets delayed.
Yeah, I remember at Christmas,
forced.
sat there waiting for version 15 and like, is it out? No, hang on, I'll get my video ready, make changes. Is it out now? Because I had to, obviously, I wanted to be there to bring the news to the community on the button, and Yeah, like you say, there's apart from, I presume, player pressure, there's no other factors involved. You do it when you can, and when it's ready.
Absolutely. And the moment this starts to feel like a job, the fun is gone. And I think that's one of what I think there's a couple of reasons why the OpenTTD community and why the development team works so well is one, it's there isn't that pressure. So like I'm on the OpenTTD Discord every day. Like this is the group of people I talk to online the most. Um, a lot of the time, we're not talking about upcoming work and pull requests and deadlines. We're just talking about whatever. We'll do development, you know, among that. The other is you mentioned unity among the team. You assume everyone has the best interests and everyone in the team. So if someone, proposes some code that you disagree with, you know that they're not trying to ruin the game or remake the game in their image, but you know that there is that space to disagree and say, I think it could be done another way. I think, maybe, this was a dud, but I've also, proposed some duds. So there's not the you sometimes get competition in a workplace where some people are fighting for their ideas. We don't really have that as much in OpenTTD, but you can still disagree with things, and there is space for that to be okay.
Yeah, and I think that is the key with such a collaborative environment. The option to disagree and like you say, it be okay is something that I think in any sort of community is something that is very important. But yeah, it's so nice to be part of that as well because obviously, I'm not one of the developers, but I have a small piece of contribution to the whole of the OpenTTD not economy, but everything around that comes together to make it what it is, and it's just brilliant. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's an inspiring project to be a part of. It reaffirms my faith in humanity sometimes when I need it.
What led you to start in the first place? You touched on it briefly, but what was it that really sparked you for that first few steps?
You know what? Let me go back and look. What was my first pull request?
You know what? That's actually another question. What was your first memorable contribution? Now, I know the project moved from one place to GitHub at one point, so presumably you started contributing after that move.
Yes, so I started with GitHub. Um, Good lord, there's 11 pages of pull requests that I've created. Okay, not counting fixing a broken link to the wiki. My first real feature was when towns build road bridges. I don't like when they didn't like when they could dead end. Where they build a bridge over a track and then the next tile is like a factory. Um, so my first feature was the town looks at the next tile, maybe the next two tiles, and says, "Can I build a road here? If I can't build a road, there's no point building a bridge there." My next big feature after that was towns can build tunnels, which is very similar to building a bridge, but which is slightly different logic. And I kind of went from there.
Do you have like a change or feature that you're most proud of, or one that like comes to mind? Yeah.
Yes. So in 2022, I think I spent 13 months working 20 hours a week on OpenTTD, working on time, and specifically splitting economy time from calendar time, where before economic stats were measured in months and days and years. So it would be, a factory would have produced 64 crates of goods last month. Um, and you also had vehicles that were and houses and things that were being released every on certain years. And if you wanted to play with steam trains for a long time, you couldn't because time would just move on without you and they'd become obsolete. So we had settings like, vehicles never expire, but then all the houses get upgrades. Like there was never a great system for it. Um, So what we did, and I say, I'm proud of this feature. It was not just me working on it. What we did was split time into two. So you have economy time, which is everything that's shown in the user interface for production last month, and then you have calendar time, which is what shows in the date in the user interface when vehicles are introduced, when houses are introduced, all that stuff. And the way you show that without having two different dates is you change economy time into real world units. So now, because 1 month in OpenTTD is just about a minute in real life. So now, if you're playing with the wall clock timekeeping mode, which is needed to enable this changing the speed of the calendar, now your industries say, production last minute. Your annual company finances are in periods instead of years. Timetables are in seconds instead of days. So that was a huge change because so much of the game had those built-in assumptions about the units of time that we use.
There must have been, like, on the face of it, it sounds like a relatively straightforward thing. Oh, you're just changing that and you're adding an option. But there's so many things that must depend upon that it must have gone quite deep. Obviously, the player's not going to see a massive amount of difference, a different word here or an option there. But there must have been so much work in the back end to make that actually come to fruition.
Yes, it was a huge amount of work, changing almost everything. Like I felt like I was touching every part of the game in some way to adapt it for that new system. So that was the big feature in 14.0, I think.
I think so.
The other feature that I'm proud of that also came in 14.0 was depot unbunching. And in contrast to time was 13 months of a part-time job, I wrote depot unbunching in a week. Like I just had a brainwave of when you're thinking about unbunching vehicles, the failure state is vehicles that get out of order just because of like the pathfinder or your road network. Vehicles will get out of order, and if you have the vehicle is supposed to be second, blocking the vehicle that's supposed to leave first in a drive-through road stop, it's a really tough problem to solve. So the brainwave I had is the depot is a pocket dimension. Vehicles don't exist in the
Yeah,
depot,
yeah.
so reorder them there, and it does not matter in what order they arrive in the depot because they can come out of the depot in whatever order you want. So I wrote that in a week. Wrote a
So many
really
people love that because they see it as mostly mostly a replacement solution for timetables, and a
yeah.
lot of people don't get on with timetables.
Timetables are tricky. They're very fiddly. I use timetables occasionally just for like synchronizing vehicles, just to make it look nice. And the nice thing is unbunching works with timetables. You can still set travel times and wait times at stations. And what depot unbunching does is whenever it leaves the depot, it says you're on time now for your
Oh,
timetable. So it actually keeps your timetables more streamlined.
all right. I didn't actually know that extra bit. That's fantastic. That is.
Yeah,
Yeah. But do you still play OpenTTD for fun? Obviously, you do a lot of development. You must play it a bit, right?
yeah. There's a joke that developers don't play games. There is some truth in that. Like I'm a game developer for a different game as my day job. I don't really play that game anymore. I enjoy the game. I enjoy when I get to play test what I'm working on because it's an excuse for me to play the game. But I'm not going to work on a game for 8 hours and then log off my work and then go play the same game. Um, OpenTTD is different because I don't work on it as many hours, and it's purely volunteer. I don't get paid to work on OpenTTD. I'm not forced to work on it. I work on it exactly how much I want to. So I do play it. And here's what'll shock some of the purists. I actually play JGR's Pack Patch sometimes. I'm in a private game with some friends where we're building a really eye candy heavy, fully 24-hour timetabled fictional Northeast U.S. right now. We did a Japan game. We did Soviet. What's the one that goes across Trans-Siberian Railway? Um, I'm in that. I play with those friends. I also have a single player game going occasionally, so I definitely do play both
Yeah.
vanilla and the patch pack.
Yeah, I keep seeing the patch pack, and I'm like, right, I'm gonna have a go at that, and then I'll be like, oh, hang on, I just need to do this other thing first. I've got this next project to do, and it just keeps getting pushed back. I must have been saying it now for like 7 years or something ridiculous like that. But one day, I'll get around to properly having a go at patch pack. I will. I'll give it a try.
A lot of the things that are drastically different, you really have to dig to find. Like scheduled dispatch is part of timetabling, and it really makes timetabling work a lot better. Um, it's a I love that feature. But if you're not playing with timetabling, you're not going to find it.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be the case, but I'll have to let everybody know what my discoveries are. I think that would be an interesting video that people would want to have a look at, and a lot of people don't even realize it even exists as well. They can get confused between the two. But going back to OpenTTD and the development, we were at what? We're on version 15.2 at the time of recording. There's still contributions being made. Obviously, they'll be in 16. But do you ever see it being complete? Do you ever see anybody going, "That'll do. There, that's it. We'll leave it like that."
Everything has an end. I don't know if anything is ever finished. Like OpenTTD will eventually cease development when no one wants to develop it anymore. I don't think it'll be because anyone says it's done. There's nothing else that can be improved. There's nothing else that I want in this game. It's perfect. I don't think. I don't know if I don't think it's possible for anything created by humans to be perfect. Although, for the amount of time and effort that's been put into OpenTTD, this might be the first.
Yeah, the first thing in human history to be decided that it's all done and it's all perfect. I mean, it's had so much refinement over the years. I think that's one of the brilliant things about it. It shines so well. It just the number of times somebody thinks they found a bug, and then they truly understand what's going on. They're like, oh no, that's fine. It's all working great. And I just have to sit there and go, you haven't found a bug. You haven't found a bug. But it happens. It obviously it does happen. That's why we have revisions of versions. But for the most part, I'm usually telling people, now this game's smooth. You can pretty much trust this game to tell you the right amount of profit and things like that. And I don't think people are necessarily used to that. It's been around and looked after and cared for so long. By so many people. I mean, what was it? Over 200 contributors on the GitHub now, I think it is. There's a lot of people that have chipped in because it's not just the core development team, is it? How does that work?
Yeah, so you mentioned over 200 contributors. I'm seeing 216 on GitHub, but before GitHub, I don't remember when they moved to GitHub. It was before I joined the project, so probably like 2016 or so. That's still 10 plus years before GitHub, and my understanding is the the contribution history before that is like not on GitHub. It is like all there isn't there's credits in OpenTTD, so you can it's in the info, the miscellaneous menu all the way at the right with the question mark. You can see the credits of everyone who's worked on the game. There's a lot of retired and inactive developers who worked on the project before I even knew it existed. So there's a lot of people. A lot of those were core developers, but there's you asked about who contributes to OpenTTD. There's three main groups of people who contribute to OpenTTD. One is the core developers who we all generally know each other, mostly just online. And a lot of some of what we work on is new features and you know improvements that I want to see because I want this in the game. A lot of what we work on is making the game faster, more stable, making the code cleaner, keeping the code nice and modern. It was originally written in C, and so upgrading from C to C++ to make the code easier to read, easier to add to, easier to maintain. These are the boring, code change pull requests that players don't see and almost any change to. So that's the first group. The second group is people who are active in the community that are contributing new features and improvements that sort of scratch a personal itch. So sometimes it's new graph authors who want a specific feature for their mod that they want to work on, or they have a specific thing that they want to change about the game. They can make that contribution. Those are always nice to review because they've been tested because they're solving a specific problem. The third group is new people to the project, and we see new people almost not every week, but at least every month. We get at least one or two new contributors who a name we haven't seen around before, who will show up out of the blue and say, "Hey, I've been playing OpenTTD since since Transport Tycoon, and here's something that I've always wanted in the game, and here's some code." I don't know if you have a question planned for what's the most challenging part of developing OpenTTD, but I was thinking about that earlier, and I sort of have an answer on this. Before about 2 years ago, when someone showed up out of the blue with code, it was really easy to tell at a glance how good the code was, like how closely we had to review. Obviously, we review everything. We have to understand all the code. But if someone showed up with code that was formatted a little weirdly, maybe they were using older C style code, we knew that was a chance to help sort of mentor that person and help them get their code to where it needed to be for inclusion. If they showed up with really polished code, it was typically someone who has more experience with software and is just wanting to contribute to their favorite game that they probably play but haven't been involved in the community.
Yeah.
Now, one of the biggest challenges that I see with reviewing contributions is when new people show up with code, especially if the code looks really good, we have to figure out, did they write this code themselves, or is this code that looks really good but was written by a chatbot that has no idea about the game? Sometimes I've seen pull requests where the code looks really great, it does not run, like the game crashes, or it just doesn't work. So
this was actually a question from the community. You've hit the nail on the head. Is like both the difficult parts, but also like the code coming from various different chatbots and AIs, and how you're seeing that change and how that challenge is being potentially overcome.
The way we're overcoming the challenge is we have a new policy. It's in our contributing documents, which are right on the front page of GitHub. We now have a policy about AI-generated contributions. The gist of it is no. OpenTTD is a project written by people with love. We should keep people writing it. And the reason for that is it's a lot of work for us to review code. So I don't want to say it's only fair for you to put in the work too. But there is part of that. Like it's easy to just generate a bunch of code and then ship it off for us to review. Now I'm obligated to spend my time doing work that you as the contributor should have done to make sure the code is good. It's a waste of time for the maintainers oftentimes because AI tools are not there yet. They don't generate code that works well. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and it shouldn't be up to us to figure out which case it is. It's also part of the review process is we look at the code and I'll have questions about, why did you decide to do it this way? And if a contributor can't answer my questions why they did it that way, that's really frustrating for me.
Yeah,
I need to
they have to be able to understand their own code in order to be able to have that collaborative approach that happens in a team like this, where you can't review it and go back to them and they know nothing about it because it was nothing that they did. One of my questions as well was about what the best way is for the community to help with the development of OpenTTD right now. So that's not just like necessarily how they can contribute with code to help the project. Um, but yes, that, but also any other ways they can help. I don't know if there's anything around maybe language translations or maybe media content, art, anything like that. What are the ways the community can help with the development of OpenTTD?
Sure. So you mentioned translation. We do. Yeah, OpenTTD is translated into 34 languages is the number that
Lots.
comes to mind. And all of that is done by volunteer contributors, most of whom are not developers, most of whom are not writing any code. We have a translation web app that you can sign up for to join a translation team, where you basically say, I understand this language and can speak it, and promise I will do my best to translate OpenTTD. Making mods is another great one. Obviously, that's another thing where knowing code is helpful, if not fully required. Like if you can make a friend or someone else who they write the code and you do the pixel art. Um, that's absolutely a way to contribute. We've seen definitely some of these some projects where it's been multiple people collaborating. I learned to write code by making mods for OpenTTD.
Oh right,
NML,
okay.
which is
So
new graph
you didn't
meta
have a
language.
coding background before then?
Nope.
Okay, so OpenTTD was the thing that started that whole thing. You said that your day job was a development role or something along those lines. So did OpenTTD lead to that sort of career?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
So I have my background before all this is um, I worked in museums, so I've spent 9 years in museums, both science and train museums. I've also worked on a railroad here in the U.S., so I was a conductor, steam locomotive fireman, and train dispatcher, which you call a signaler in the UK. Yeah, no software background. So I learned to code making mods for OpenTTD during COVID, during the COVID lockdown, and then picked up C++ to work on the game. Um, Teaching yourself C++ or NML from scratch is uh, not the easiest way to go about it. I don't know if I'd recommend that to everybody, but it worked for me. Because I had a specific project I wanted to use it for. Like I suspect this is probably common among you know your viewers. I have a hard time learning something just like in a classroom to pass a test. I could not learn a programming language to pass a programming class. But if it's making my favorite video game better, that's the motivation I need to stay up until 2 a.m. Reading through the code and seeing how it's done, and then copying that and adapting it, and trying to do something else with it. I mean, that's how you learn to code in OpenTTD. Is like when I did towns can build tunnels. I didn't come up with that from scratch. I looked at how do towns build bridges, and
Yeah.
then what do I need to change to build a tunnel instead. Sort of using that the context clues, um, instead of understanding, going understanding pointers from scratch. You can pick that up later as you need it.
Yeah, you mentioned bridges there and tunnels and coding. I wondered, do you have any insight as to the technical side of things, as to why there are just no diagonal bridges in OpenTTD? Because it's something. One of the there's a list of features that I hear, and I always just say, don't bother. As far as I'm concerned, that's never getting in there. And to me, without any knowledge of the code base, because despite what people think that I'm part of the dev, I've just played the game a lot. I know how to play the game, and I've managed to infer a lot of things from it. But there must be a lot of technical barriers. The game just wouldn't be made for that, right? The fundamentals.
Diagonal bridges. Okay, so bridges are weird in OpenTTD. Bridges, when a train goes onto a bridge, the same is true for tunnels. It goes into a wormhole. It is not on the tile of the bridge. Bridges have two tiles, which are the end, the ramps. The tiles in the middle do not are not they're not bridge tiles. They're a ground tile that has a bridge above it, but that tile doesn't store information for the bridge. So bridges are sort of a hack. and that comes from Transport Tycoon Deluxe. They were weird there, and they've continued to be weird. Adding diagonal bridges would be, I think, tricky from a user interface standpoint. Which way does it go, and on which tile? Like, I mean, I guess you could do it, but it would definitely be weird. If we get diagonal bridges in the future, my prediction would be it would only be when you get fully multi-level tiles, like in Locomotion, how you can build diagonal bridges because it's just elevated track.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd get diagonal bridges unless OpenTTD supported that, which is possible in the future. There's a lot of work that would take to get to that stage. The main one is you need a new map array. Try not to get too technical here, but
this is my point, though, right? Like, you have to get so ridiculously technical and so deep, and it would affect so many other things that it's just not a matter of adding a new piece of track. For example, if there was one direction of track that wasn't in the game, you could add that new direction of track and it wouldn't be too bad. But to go for diagonal bridges, like you say, it's a whole different setup. Bridges, it's not the same as normal track with the wormholes and so forth. That I don't think people, the average player would understand all of these extra layers and technical aspects that would have to be dug up and moved around in order to make it possible. So from a technical standpoint, it seems like yes, but in reality, there's just so many different barriers that somebody would have to have the time and effort to work through, that then it just puts it so far as in the future. Like you're trying to grasp at something that's so far away, is such a big challenge. Do you really want to go through all that for that one little thing? And I think that's where diagonal bridges sit.
Yeah, I think diagonal bridges would probably require at least 2 years worth of really dedicated work, because you have to do a new map array first, which is not impossible. It just is a lot of work.
I think we've answered a certain collection of feature requests with that. So I wanted to address that and say, right, okay, we've got a bucket, technically possible, but you're probably not going to see it. We'll never say never, but let's just forget about that and concentrate on the other things that we could potentially have in the game.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say never. All of the most requested features, some developer has a half-finished branch of, I've started writing a new map array, but like there's still a ton of work left to do. And, we've been talking about it for years and years. Never say never, but it's certainly not coming anytime soon.
Yeah. I'm getting a bit of an announce for those sorts of feature requests. And I've actually had a bunch of feature ideas over the years, and some of them have ended up in the game because I think I've mentioned it and somebody's gone, oh, okay. And some of them, somebody else has had the same idea. I think one of the ones was removing the track between two double depots. It's something that I thought should be removed, and then somebody just went and did it. Which was great to see. I don't know whether they saw me complaining about it on any sort of video or anything like that. So yeah, there's so many different little features that I think are potentially possible in the game, and I've made a little list, and I know I've sent it to you beforehand. So I was wondering if we could rattle through some of these, and if you've got any particular interesting thoughts on them, then do let me know what you think.
Absolutely.
The first one, I've always been thinking this for a while, right? Roads have tunnels. Trains have tunnels. Why don't ships have tunnels? Now, don't worry, I'm not going to ask for aircraft tunnels, but ships, right? Why not ship tunnels?
There is no technical reason why ships don't have tunnels. You absolutely could draw a sprite for them and add the code so that you can add to the the construction menu and do that. Ships don't fit in tunnels. The sprites don't fit in tunnels. Ships have no collision. They have infinitely small space, but tunnels are only so big, especially height-wise. And I think even the vanilla ships, they wouldn't fit through the tunnels. They would look ridiculous. There are obviously mods that add smaller ships. I did a canal boats set a few years ago, Sal's canal boats, and those would absolutely fit in a tunnel. But and there are canal tunnels, so never say never. But I don't.
That's
because
why there is
vanilla
at the
ships
moment. Yeah.
because vanilla ships wouldn't fit. I don't know if it's a high priority for anybody. But again, if anyone watching this, if you want to make ship tunnels, GitHub's that way. I'd love to review it.
Yeah, maybe like we have large and small aircraft, where you could have like ships that do fit in tunnels and ships that don't. I don't know. That's just something that I thought of at the moment. But you're adding complexity to something. Then is it going to be something that confuses the player unnecessarily? These are all the things that you have to think about with all this sort of stuff, isn't it? Now, here's one. Now, this has sort of been done, but it was I believe, a bodge, and is now very many versions old. Support for more than 15 companies.
Not impossible, but you mentioned it being a bodge. I haven't looked at the code for. I think you did a public game with that. I haven't looked for the code. I mentioned earlier that I did some work with changing how time works in OpenTTD. I was not the first person to do that. People have been slowing down time in OpenTTD for literally decades, where you can change the tick speed, you can just slow down, um, you know, the calendar speed, and then also all the economy is tied to that. There's lots of side effects where if you just slow down how fast the day changes. Now when your industry says, production last month. Well, your month was 3 hours long. So like it no longer is useful information to you. So there are lots of ways you can change how the game works, but there's weird side effects. So support for more than 15 companies is one of those. You quickly fall in, if you want to do it properly and actually get it included into core OpenTTD, you quickly fall down a rabbit hole of, oh, well, this is kind of weird. This is a side effect I need to fix. This side effect depends on this other thing that I need to fix. Like you run into issues like there aren't enough colors. I thought that was a problem in your game where you were having trouble figuring out whose company was which.
Because there was like 3 or 4 different red companies.
Right. You have too many red companies. Same thing with that's the problem with the game and with the map, because you don't have like even if you did like 2cc colors, we had first and second company colors. Vanilla sprites don't have second company color. So yeah, now you need more colors. How are you going to add more colors? Which colors are you going to add? Are you going to allow any color, or are you going to are you going to propose, are my more colors that I'm proposing? Graphs don't work when you have, or they work, but they don't make any sense when you have so many data points on them. Like it's possible, but a lot of work. I think that would also need a new map array. If I recall correctly, you can't save in that.
I think you can. Again, I don't know how much it was done according to, keeping in with because as far as I'm aware, it was never intended to be actually incorporated into the main OpenTTD branch, right?
Yeah.
It was always going to be a fork that was probably going to end up just being a dead end. So it might be that it does work, but it probably wouldn't work if you tried to load an old save or something like that.
Yes. So possible, a lot of work. It is not just changing the limit, and then everything works.
Yeah, another one that popped up, and a lot of these come, like you say, people contribute because they're like, oh, I'd like to see this feature in the game. And one of the ones was when I was converting from electric rail to either monorail or maglev. One of the ways that I attack that is to get rid of all my vehicles, convert everything, and then add new vehicles. There's a few different ways that people approach it. Some use mods and things as well. But I thought it would be really, really helpful to be able to sell every single vehicle that was stopped in a depot. Because going around all the depots on my map and selling them all before then I can upgrade the rails, because you can't upgrade a depot that's got a train in it if it's not the right type. So
Sure.
I was thinking, well, it'd be great to have a button that would just sell every vehicle that was stopped in a depot. Like from a development standpoint, like is that something that would be relatively straightforward? Would it be possible?
Yes, that would be very easy. With a lot of these things, the hardest part is where do you put the button? Like, what's the user interface for it?
Yeah.
And just thinking about it now, I would put it in the vehicle groups menu. There's an action drop down. I don't have the game open, so I'm using
Yeah.
my memory of this. There's an action drop down in like
Is
the
that where you
lower
go
right.
send replace
Send all
vehicles,
to depot.
yeah,
And
sell,
replace vehicles.
yeah, and send all, and then you could have like sell all in depot, yeah.
Sell all stopped. Or
Yeah.
yeah, sell stopped in depot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put it there. Actually selling them would be pretty easy. You just iterate through the vehicles and go, is it mine? Is it stopped in a depot? If both those are true, sell it. While we're thinking about replacing vehicles of a type, there's a pull request that I'm hoping the contributor comes back to finish it someday because I really like to see it. The same way you can have stations with multiple tiles and multiple types of transport, this pull request lets depots do the same thing. So you could have a depot with multiple tiles, and you could have a depot that has one tile of electrified rail and one tile of monorail. And that way you can auto replace between vehicles of a different type in that depot. You can have the electrified train go in and automatically, and using the auto replace tool, switch to a monorail vehicle.
And then it would come out the other segment of it. Oh,
Yeah,
right. That just reminded me of something that I thought of years ago that I completely forgot about. And that was a feature in the game where you could have depots of different lengths, and then you could only make a train of that length. So the longer
that
the depot, then the longer the train. And that would
the same contributor who is working on the pull request that I talked about. That is step one. Step two is depots have length and only a certain number of tracks, and trains will only fit in the depot if it's the right length. Yeah, another pull request I'd love to see. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where it's like changing the way time works. There's a lot of assumptions about depots are only one tile, and how do you store the depot ID, and the Pathfinder needs to know about multiple depots, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. And unfortunately, this contributor hasn't been active in a while, so I'm crossing my fingers every day they come back and finish these because I'd love to have them.
that sounds fantastic.
I
So
am
another
curious what you have in mind for disasters. You mentioned ship and pandemic disasters.
well, yeah, I did mention pandemic disasters to you, and that was more. It wasn't specific about pandemics per se, but it was more about the fact that the game has been around so long now that the future years are now here. Okay, so the link in my brain was like, oh, there's recessions in the game. We've had recessions in real life, and we've had other global events in real life. Maybe some things, and then the pandemic was an example. Was like
Yeah,
maybe there would be the option to enable pandemics, and at a certain point, you have a year where passenger travel just plummets, or something like that, and it, like I said, it wasn't specific about the pandemic, but yeah, it's something that as the game ages and as time goes on, what sort of real world things could potentially be added as options in the game, and that was my example.
yeah. I think it's interesting to see that in mod development because you've got all these vehicle sets that are real world vehicles, and then we hit the present, and then they stop because no one's in because they're not adding new trains in the future because they don't know what's in the future. So we've seen some futuristic sets, but like when Transport Tycoon came out, maglev was supposed to be the future. Well,
Yeah.
we're in the future, and maglevs are still you know very limited in use. What does the future look like? Vac trains, maybe, but they've been talking about that for decades. Yeah, I think you absolutely could do disasters. You could absolutely add new disasters.
Ships need to be able to sink as well because they're the only vehicle type that doesn't have like trains can crash into each other. Road vehicles can get run over by trains. Airplanes can crash on landing. Ships, they're invincible. Not only can they go through each other, but they don't have a disaster. And I know they're terrible for profit as a general rule. So they've got their own little downfalls. But like, come on, let's have some ships sinking randomly or something. Maybe if they get like below, like in the bottom 20% of their maximum reliability or whatever it is, then there's a chance that it will just sink.
Yeah, ships can break down, right?
They can break down, but they don't.
Okay.
They don't
But
sink.
they don't sink.
Trains can break down. Aircraft. You see, even when aircraft break down, that doesn't affect their chance of crashing. Neither does.
Aircraft breakdowns are very silly.
Yes, yeah, it is. A lot of people think that an aircraft, when it breaks down, it's a more chance of crashing on landing and things like that, but it's not directly linked together. So yeah, that is a little bit poor. But ships can, yeah, they can break down, but they can't just like have a disaster like all the other vehicle types.
Yeah, I think you could add that. I think that would be. I think the hardest part about that would be what sprite do you show? Could you automatically? No, because if you had like a catamaran or something, it wouldn't. It still wouldn't look right. Yeah, I
Just
don't
like
think there's a way
rotate
to.
it a little bit and just disappear.
Right? Could you rotate it, or could you just chop off the bottom layer of pixels? But I don't.
Hmm?
I don't think it would work. Um,
Especially for ones that are going like along the grid lines, because then you're not actually chopping the bottom of the ship. But yeah, so
yeah,
for me, because it seems like there's a hole. Like that one does it, that one does it, that one ships don't. It feels like I want to fill that column, but like you say, that there's challenges with that.
disasters are old code. There's no way to trigger even if you're like trying to test disasters. There's not really a reliable way to trigger a specific disaster just because of the way it's coded. Um, yeah, disaster vehicles are vehicles, and they use I'm forgetting exactly what, but their code is pretty weird. Yeah, could be done. Just questions of what and how do you balance it, and how do you allow players to enable or disable ship disasters without adding more settings. You
There's
know,
so many settings. There's so
OpenTTD
many.
has a ton of settings, and we work really hard to not add any new ones. It doesn't mean we can't. We will add new settings when there's no other way to do it, when it is a feature we want enough to add a new setting, but we really try and avoid it just because there's too many.
The
It's
filters help.
confusing.
The filters do help,
The filters help.
and I think at the end of the day, if there is a setting for something, and if it needs it and it's holding back a feature, then okay, let's have it. But I agree, there's a lot of settings, and it's not easy for new people to navigate that area.
Well, yeah, and the easier way to, like, let's say you added ship disasters and you want players to be able to select it. What I would do is modify the existing setting for aircraft disasters, and I would just change that to vehicle disasters, and then maybe have it turn it from an on off to a drop down where you can say none, ships only, aircraft and ships, or something like that.
Yeah.
Expanding existing settings is the secret to to adding settings without adding settings.
Yeah, that seems like a nice way around it. Of course, I sent you a massive list, but I'm not going to go through them all. But there was a couple of smaller ones. Now, in my opinion, these next two are the ones that are probably the most straightforward and probably most likely to be added. But let's see if you agree with me on that. So, one of them is to display the current train length in the vehicle window, in the vehicle detail window, because once that thing's out of a depot, I don't know.
Yeah,
I could count it. Some wagons are different sizes as well.
I'm pretty sure JGR's patch pack has that. So yes, that would be easy to add, especially because you can look how it's done over there and then just adapt it. The code bases are not exactly the same. It's not like the patch pack is ahead of OpenTTD. They sort of diverged in parallel. But you could easily look at it and go, okay, change how commands work, change the syntax. The actual functionality is the same. So yeah, that would be easy to add.
And the other one is the maximum reliability of a vehicle in the details window as well, because it tells you the current reliability. But obviously, the vehicle's maximum can change over the years. So without going into the available vehicles list and seeing what the maximum is there, you don't know how well or how good that vehicle's going to be, unless it's just serviced and you're looking at the number as it jumps up.
Yeah, I think that would be easy to add. Just probably just a text change.
Wow. Okay. So so it seems like the two that I had the kind of feeling might be the most easiest seem like out of the ones I've mentioned are probably the most easiest.
Yeah, that's often true. Not always. Like The one that's actually borderline impossible. How long is the vehicle before it is purchased? It's impossible to know because because modded vehicles can have a callback that changes their length. I
Right.
believe. Yeah, sometimes these things look easy, and sometimes they're not because there's some secret reason why it's not.
Yeah. Oh well, that's good. Maybe somebody will make that feature.
Maybe.
Right, a little surprise segment now for you. I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have any questions for me as a creator who creates OpenTTD content? This is your opportunity. I know we talk sometimes, but while we're here, do you want to put me on the spot with any questions?
Sure. I have a couple questions. Do you like trains, or is it just about like the logistics? What do you like about OpenTTD?
Oh, that's a good question. I still remember picking up the original game in the shop and looking at the back of the box and going, "Oh, this looks cool. I want to play this." And it all just flowed from there through all the different versions of the games and OpenTTD. So trains, yes. Logistics, yes. I've got quite a passion about all of that sort of stuff. And I think that is probably one of the reasons why OpenTTD really is a game that I love to play. And also, you can do so much with it. Sometimes people say, like, how are you still playing this game after like 20 odd years? And I'm like, well, every week I think of a new thing I can try, a different way of doing something, a competition or something to, tweak and tweak the AIs to see what would happen. So it's fascination of both the game, the contents within the game, that, like you say, the logistics. It's something that I'm passionate about from so many different angles, and I'm just so grateful that I'm able to then come here and do this sort of thing, bring the game to the community, and also collaborate with people such as yourself.
That all makes sense. You asked me earlier, do I still play OpenTTD besides working on it? Do you play OpenTTD when you're not streaming?
Not right now. See, the answer to that question would have been different like 15 months ago when I had a day job. Back then, my content was just when I had time to do things. I've got 2 young children. I had a day job. I would make bits of content. I would play games. I'd go to LAN parties. We'd play OpenTTD. But now, this is what I do. I create content. I do it full time. It's become a lot more focused. So whilst I'm growing and I'm kind of still in between this kind of full-time thing and a hobby, whilst I'm in that phase, I have to be just so laser focused on making sure I'm doing the best content I can for people to enjoy, for them to learn and also enjoy the game. I haven't really been able to just sit down and enjoy the game myself. But when I do play the game as part of the content, I do still enjoy it, and I'm sure there'll be future times where either my situation's different or I have more time where I'll be able to get back to just having a game every now and then.
It's interesting. In a way, you're doing OpenTTD professionally, and I'm not.
Yeah, this is something that did cross my mind, and it is such a strange and weird thing. I mean, obviously, my channel isn't technically just OpenTTD. It is roughly somewhere in the region of 1/5 to 1/3 OpenTTD. But because of the algorithm and the way that people are interested in different things, it's like pretty much the only thing that people see. So when somebody goes, "Hey, you know what? I think you would like this Factorio game," and I'll be like, "Yeah, I've got 2 series on my channel of it," and they'll be like, "What? Or have you? Transport Fever 3 is coming out. Have you tried Transport Fever 2?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got 2 live streams of it." I've done so much other stuff that's in and around, not just trains and transport, but also retro games and stuff as well. But because of the algorithm, some people have the impression that I am Mr. OpenTTD in terms of content creation. Which
I think part of
I
that,
can understand that.
Yeah, I think part of it is you were the only, at least by far the biggest OpenTTD content creator on YouTube. I know there are some others, but they're much, much smaller.
Yeah, when I started, there was a couple others that were bigger than me, but I was the first, I believe, the first English person doing it. And
Yes,
I think that's where it kicked. There was almost certainly tutorials in German, and I think there was some others as well. But I think I was one of the first that did English, which is where I got that kind of first initial interest. And of course, I've continued to try and do that. I mean, it was last weekend I brought out a brand new tutorial about working with railways. It's still an ongoing thing, not just because I'm changing and improving the way that I tell and teach, but also the game's evolving. Back when I started, like, people didn't really use path signals. There was all these other signals to play around with. And now, when a player installs the game, they don't see anything but path signals.
that was a
So,
controversial change. I got
yep.
some hate mail about that.
Yeah, there's been a few. I mean, one of the ones in 15. Oh god, we're going on a mini side quest now. So there was a few in 15. One of the ones is the graphics. People, I don't know what it is. I think people are mostly just stuck in their ways about it because to me it feels like it's closer to some more of the original stuff. It's got a good saturation and contrast, which helps with identifying what's going on to the casual player and so forth. And but obviously, there's so many people that've been using the original, it was OpenGFX 1 for so long that a change is always going to be jarring for them. And the other one was the drop down menu at the top, the toolbar menu, a behavior where you now have to have an extra click if you want to be able to select something. And
The idea with all of these is they can always be changed back by the player.
yeah,
So if you use signals that are not path signals, you can, it's one setting to just change it right back, and then it remembers it. Same goes for the graphics, the base graphics set,
yeah, yeah, and
and
the
the
menu,
behavior of the toolbars.
yeah,
And the reason that the default changed for everybody and why the players who have a specific choice have to change back is there's no way for the game to know if you are a new player or an experienced player
yeah,
for settings that don't exist yet. So and we changed the defaults because the new defaults are intended to aid new players
yeah,
um, who are maybe not used to like the drop down menus only staying open when you're like holding your mouse button down is a really weird behavior. You don't see it in other software. So
mm,
people were often getting confused about how to get to the contents of those drop downs. So we had to change the default so that the default for new users would be what they expect. And
yeah.
we fully expected everyone who likes the old system, including me, um, will go right back to the old one.
And the final, well, semi controversial thing that I wanted to bring up was the changes from.
Passwords.
Ah, you got it.
Oh no, we are all very aware
Yeah,
um,
I've been
that
telling my community that there's been a lot of feedback about that. I think it was something that was just not anticipated. Like, I think most people want to keep the thing that they're working on secure, and they want to let the people in that they want to let in. But then there are communities out there where oh well, anybody can come and join me, and with the change, you can't have an open company at the moment, which is something that we used to have, and obviously with, like you say, preserving the way that the game used to be and being able to not take a feature away, essentially. A lot of people are assuming that there's going to be some sort of change coming up to try and re-enable that, so to speak.
I mentioned features aren't set in stone. This is one of them. So there has already been pull request that's been merged, so it's in the nightlies since the end of January. It'll be an OpenTTD 16 that does allow open companies that anyone can join. The one use case that is still not covered by that is if you want to invite specific people, but they are not online at the same time that you are. I suspect that will be fixed at some point, but hasn't been yet. But we're not throwing it all out and saying this is how it is and it can never be changed. It's just when it's a bunch of volunteers and we all work on what we want to work on when we want to work on it. Sometimes things get left unfinished, and sometimes when they're unfinished, the game gets released. So it's I don't want to justify it, but it's one of the weird things about OpenTTD, it being a non-hierarchical organization where we just work on whatever, is sometimes there are rough edges, and that's sort of the price admission sometimes of not being a commercial game with project managers and a roadmap and everything. Is sometimes there are rough edges, sometimes not everything is done at the same time. Um, it will get fixed in the future.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, like you say, these things will happen in a community project like this. But I would say, by and large, that everybody that works on it, contributes to it, should be proud of what it is, because it is such a fantastic thing that has been bringing so many people together and enjoying it for so many years. So from the community, I just want to say thank you to you and everybody else that works on part of the project to bring it to us and to continue to bring more of the game. So thank you very much for that.
you're welcome. It's an honor, and I work on the game. It's nice that people say thank you, and it's nice to know that people appreciate what I do. A lot of it is I'm doing it for me. I like the game. I like playing the game. There's also that aspect to it. So I take seriously the responsibility that the other people are playing this game that I work on. But at the end of the day, I would still do it even if I was the only player.
Hmm. Yeah. So with all that said, version 16 when?
uh Certainly not April. Because that's coming up too quickly. We have to release before the big release. We have to do usually one or two beta releases,
Yeah.
which are all about getting the game in front of people for testing.
Hmm.
Because we have nightly builds available. They're in Steam. They're on our website, where every single day the automated servers build the latest version of the game and push it out to these platforms. So you can play everything up to that was contributed up to that, the moment it was built. I play that, but a lot of people play the stable release.
I
So
usually
getting
advise people to play the stable release. I mean, you're a
yeah,
developer, you understand, you're in the project, but most people, like, they'll come to me and be like, "Why is this not working?" Or "Why is that?" And I'm like, "Well, what version are you on?" "Oh, I'm using this release candidate." I was like, "Well, you know, they fixed that. It's coming out next week. Just play the normal game for a bit, okay? If you want to help and you want to have a look, like, go investigate the features and go give it a try. And if you find something, then raise it. But you have to expect that this is not it's not released product, and if you want to just play and enjoy the game, don't play those versions. You need to step into those versions to see what's going on, to help with testing. But if you want to just play to enjoy, probably just leave them to one side and play the main branch.
yeah. The release builds are faster. They're more optimized, and they don't have new features, but they also don't have the bugs that come with new features. I wouldn't say we often see like game breaking bugs in the nightly builds, and I think it's pretty rare that we get bugs where like you lose your save, like you can't continue playing that save. It's just okay, you can't do that until it gets fixed in the tomorrow's nightly. Like for playing on a server, you need whatever version the server's running, which is usually a stable build. So yeah, before release, we'll push out some beta builds for people to test. They'll find stuff. We'll do another beta build with those fixes. We'll do a release candidate, usually sometimes several, and then once we're pretty happy with it, you get the full release, and that usually takes several months. So we certainly will not hit the traditional April 1st release date. After
You
that,
you like to
who
make it
knows?
difficult for me, don't you? You got traditional release dates. I think sometimes they come at Christmas, sometimes they come at New Year. We've got a family birthday on April 1st, so I've got that to contend with. If you do a release then, the number of times I've been like, but I was much more on it with version 15, and thank you very much to your collaboration with me on that video. You was able to guide me a little bit, point out a mistake that I made, and to try and make the video the best that it can be, so that everybody had the fantastic news about all the features, so that's really good. I'd like to just give you the opportunity to explain to people, if they want to know more, if they've heard this and they're thinking, oh, you know what, I've never really thought about this, I want to know more, where can they find out more about OpenTTD, its development, how they can get involved, or any of those sort of things?
OpenTTD development happens on GitHub, which is public. It's github.com/OpenTTD/OpenTTD, because it's a project and then the actual game. All that's public. Pull requests are when someone wants to submit code changes, and then we also have issues, which are bug reports. And then there's discussions, which we don't use that much, but it's mostly talking about like feature requests. So that is where all the official communications happen. That and OpenTTD.org. All of the development chat happens in the official OpenTTD Discord currently. We have an OpenTTD development channel where pretty much all the developers, the active developers, hang out, and we talk about bugs and AI and lunch and occasionally the game. There's also some channels for new graph development. So if you want to follow along with your favorite mod and see what they're working on, you can follow along there. If you want to make a mod, you can talk to other the developers and get help and advice. So the OpenTTD Discord is a really useful resource. If you follow that and GitHub, that's pretty much where all of our development is happening.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we've actually managed to go through all of the questions and features that I wanted to talk about. We've touched on a variety of topics. So thank you very much for joining me, taking time out your day, and in addition to the thanks for the work that you do on OpenTTD, it's great of you to come to my channel and say hello to all of the viewers. I'm sure there'll be extra comments and messages down in the video comments, but I want to say thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
Okay, well, we'll leave it there for now. So thank you, take care, and have a good rest of your day.
All right, see you later.
I want to say another massive thank you to Too Tall Tyler for joining me for that conversation. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give the video a like. There's also links on screen to not only my most recent video, but also to the interview I did with the developer of the Hog AI. Thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.